Peasants were compelled to forsake all private food production, and newly established agricultural communes planted less land for grain, which accounted for more than 80% of China's food energy at the time. Meanwhile, the people in the countryside began to starve. Many people looked for alternative food supplies such as grass, sawdust, leather, and even seeds sifted from animal excrement. Thousands of villagers in Sichuan were forced to eat sand. Dogs, cats, rats, mice, and insects were all devoured, alive or dead, until there were none left. Malnutrition, famine edema, and vitamin inadequacy became visible. Peasant women experienced greater levels of amenorrhea and prolapsed uterus due to weaker pelvic muscles, resulting in a drop in birth rate. Mental disease, hysteria, and suicide were also prevalent. During the famine years, it is estimated that between 2 and 3 million individuals committed suicide. Cannibalism was one of the most heinous consequences in the Great Famine. Nobody knows how common or widespread it was, but there are several stories of flesh-eating, both official and anecdotal. Specific occurrences of cannibalism are detailed in police reports. In Linixia, Gansu Province, scores of peasants were imprisoned in 1960, the majority for exhuming their neighbors' bodies and devouring them to survive. In the same year, Anhui Province reported 1,289 instances of cannibalism. Chang and Halliday describe a Fenyang couple who strangled and consumed their 8-year-old son. Other parents traded children to avoid the embarrassment of eating their own. Cannibalism was harshly punished by the state, but it continued. There were also numerous reports of child abandonment, child trafficking, and forced prostitution. As a gesture of charity, some starving peasants murdered their children, elderly relatives, or spouses. As a primarily social disaster, the famine had clear signs of omission, commission, and provision. All modern man-made famines share these three characteristics. The largest omission was China's officials' failures to realize the crisis and quickly get foreign food supplies. Famine research illustrates how easily they may be terminated or averted once the government decides to act, but it took the Chinese government nearly 3 years to act. The worst act of the Commission were taking away all means of private food production, pushing peasants into mismanaged communes, and maintaining food exports. The weather simply added to the misery. Official explanations continue to blame natural disasters for misery, but China's own statistics contradict this explanation. Without a doubt, the 1960-61 drought would have reduced food availability in the worst affected provinces, but it would have resulted in only a small portion of the eventual nationwide death toll. The worst droughts and floods in recent Chinese history had just a little impact on the country's adequate food supply during the 1990s. Only a restoration to more realistic economic measures, including food imports, in 1961 ended the famine. The real extent of the famine was not known to the world until 1982, when single-year age distributions from the country's first very reliable population census were published. These data allowed the entire number of additional fatalities between 1959 and 1961 to be estimated, and the earliest estimations by American demographers put the figure between 16.5 and 23 million. More extensive later research estimated an additional 23 to 30 million deaths. We will never know the true toll because the official Chinese estimates for the 3 famine years severely underestimated both the decline in fertility and the increase in mortality, and we are unable to rebuild these critical facts accurately.